Indiana, we are simply passing through history. This is history.
Welcome to the Young Indy Chroniclers, a podcast about the making of the show, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which first aired on ABC in 1992.
Kept thinking about what was Indiana Jones like as a young man. I came up with this idea of him seeing the world through the eyes of a soldier and a secret agent.
Over the course of our podcast, we're going to talk to a whole host of very talented people who either worked on this show or were there from the beginning.
We were able to shoot it on location in the real places where these events took place.
Oh, make it up as you go. Oh boy, that's great advice.
We hired some of the best European directors, a whole host of very, very talented people.
I'm your host, Peter Holmstrom.
And I'm Daniel Noah, and this is the Young Indy Chroniclers.
There's only one rule, Indiana. Stay alive.
Welcome back to the Young Indy Chroniclers, the one and only podcast devoted specifically to the Young Indiana Jones television series and franchise. I'm your host, Peter Holmstrom, and joining me on this adventure of a lifetime is Mr. Daniel Noah.
Really excited to be back, Peter.
On today's show, we are thrilled to have as a guest a director whose films were quite a staple on the American television sets and theaters in the late 80s and 90s. If you were a kid, this director made such films as Free Willy and Operation Dumbo Drop, which I loved very much, I might say, as well as Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles. And if you were more of an adult, he had such films as Quigley Down Under, The Phantom, Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, and many, many more. He also directed one of the most acclaimed miniseries of all time, Lonesome Dove. Thankfully, he was able to somehow fit 6 episodes of the Young Indiana Jones franchise in there as well. We're thrilled to have with him as a guest today, Mr. Simon Wincer. Thank you very much for being here.
Hi, it's my pleasure. I look forward to having a chat.
And I told Peter today, I did some math, you tie. So you and Carl Schultz each directed 6 episodes, or 6 hours of the show, excuse me.
Exactly.
Which makes you the most director.
And we're both Australian, ironically.
It's the show. It's an Australian show. That's really what it is.
There we go, yeah.
You know, you've had such a diverse career. I mean, it's really amazing how many films you've directed, especially in that kind of like period of time. But I wonder if you could take us back. Like, how did you first get involved in the film industry? What's your origin story?
When I was still at school, one Saturday morning, I had to go. My father had to have a meeting at a television station in Sydney, and he said, "Would I like to come along?" I think I was about 15 or 16, and while he had this meeting, I stood outside this studio where they were doing a worldwide show called Wide World of Sports, live to air, and this whole world lit up before me of cameras and lights, and I thought, that's a part of the world I want to be. It was always assumed I'd be a lawyer or an accountant or something, but anyway, so that was the inspiration. And when I left school, I started as a mailboy with the ABC, which is like the BBC or like public television and in America, and sort of worked my way up from a mailboy to, did studio hand, props, floor manager, camera, and a little bit of directing of outside broadcasts. And but I was interested in drama, so. I left after 5 years working in TV and started working full-time in the theatre just because I wanted to understand the acting and directing and all that sort of stuff.
About what year was that?
Oh, God, that's way back when. It would have been 1962. I started my career at 18 and a half years of age when I left school. Yeah.
So this is your lifeblood. You've done this all your life, literally.
That's all I've ever done, yeah. No, never been involved in any other business except the entertainment business, yeah.
Well, I went back over the last couple of weeks. I've been watching some of your films. I rewatched The Phantom, which I had seen, in the 90s when it came out.
Just take a look around. Darkness rules the earth.
In a dangerous world.
Governments crumble. Chaos reigns.
In a treacherous time.
There is opportunity in chaos.
Evil is a fact.
We shall succeed where they have failed.
Drax is on a quest for a supernatural power.
They know far too much.
And courage.
Stop them. You're the only one who can.
Is a phantom.
And I watched Quigley Down Under for the first time. and really enjoyed it. Of course, it's Tom Selleck, who was originally cast as Indiana Jones, in the early 1980s.
That's right.
God created all men. They say Sam Colt made them equal, more or less.
You see, that's what I like about you Americans. You people of action, not words.
And then even some of the way, the themes and the photography, the way it dealt with the natives and the indigenous peoples of Australia. There seems some parallels with some of the stories in the Young Indy episode that you directed. So I was curious if there were any themes, I suppose, to your work prior to Young Indy that you felt maybe described your work or what called you into working on Young Indy or anything like that.
I think probably, if you look at the body of my work, it has a common theme, and that's it has a very strong emotional through line. I'm very drawn to stories that are highly emotional.
I gotta look out for Willy, and I gotta do what's best for him.
Jake, I already told you I ain't going to San Antonio. I already been there.
Don't fuck me. I guess you'll go where I say go.
Not to San Antonio, I ain't.
My wife says I make movies that make people cry, which I suppose I've had my fair share of those.
You write the letter. Imagine that you've just had a baby and that you are writing to the father. Don't think of me. Think of someone you love.
I grabbed the baby and a pistol and I hid in the root cellar out back. But then the baby started crying. I tried to shush him and suckle him, but he just wouldn't stop. One Comanche, I remember, he acted real drunk and wore my green apron. He must have heard something and started hollering and coming closer. So I put my hand gentle-like over my baby's mouth. Don't cry. Daddy'll be home soon. The Indians found us, but they just laughed. They was drunk. Didn't want to hurt anybody. And rode away. And at sundown, Roy came home, but I was still afraid to come out of the cellar. I was afraid of what he'd do when he saw I smothered our son.
Really, that's what I look for, emotion, and when I was approached to do Young Indy, which was literally at the last minute, I'm not sure if I should be telling you this, but there was another director who I don't think was quite up to the task, and I was suddenly called in to do this episode set in Africa, and I literally finished the final mix of Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man on the Friday night, and Sunday I was on an airplane to London from Los Angeles to start work on this series. I didn't actually meet George Lucas or Rick McCallum, the producer, until I had arrived in Kenya and scouting, because they were shooting the first one they shot in I think Barcelona.
Yeah.
And I think Terry Jones directed that. Am I right in saying
That's right. Yeah. It must have been an early shoot, because I feel like a lot of people met them in and around that time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was. I think that was definitely the first one shot. Oh no, they did Cairo as well, I think. Anyway, so it wasn't until we started shooting that I even met George or Rick.
Wow.
So they cast me off my resume, I guess, and the body of my work. I guess it sort of fit what they were after for Young Indy. This sort of epic sort of tapestry.
Did Rick call you, or how were you contacted?
No, it's actually what happened was Saturday morning I woke up at my hotel in Los Angeles, and there was a note that was faxed from Barcelona, and it was Rick introducing himself. I have a copy of the note somewhere. I should have, and introducing himself and saying, look, they were doing this series about Young Indiana Jones, and they'd love me to take on this particular episode, and if I was interested, they'd arrange a special delivery of the script, because I was actually going to be heading home to Australia on the Monday, I think it was, and I think a script was hand delivered later that Saturday, and I guess it must have been couriered from Skywalker Ranch And I read it, and of course I loved it. And who would say no to George Lucas anyway?
Right.
And so I read it and loved it. It was all basically done direct, not even through my agent, who eventually came in on the loop. But I was on a plane on Sunday to go to London and hook up with everybody.
Wow.
That was the episode with the Albert Schweitzer episode in Africa.
Yes, it was. Yes. Sorry, excuse me, but we're talking about now, because they're now all on DVD as a series. So we're talking about that now, without the beginning and end that had each individual episode had old Indy sort of top and tailing the episode.
Is there Mr. Jones here?
Yeah, that's me. Thank goodness. I've been waiting for hours.
Oh, what's the problem, Mr. Jones?
And I have this.
What we got? Little girl caught a stray ball at Heartstock twice on the way over.
All right, let's go. Come on.
Doctor, what I be right here?
Poor little girl. That's terrible. Just terrible.
Yeah, shame. Happens all the time.
Look at the world she lives in. First you give them welfare so they can live off of guys like me. Next thing you know, they're doing drugs and blowing each other away like animals. Kid like that grows up, what's she going to amount to?
That's an appalling generalization.
Oh, crap. A liberal?
Well, for this one, we've actually seen both. Believe it or not, we tracked down a Japanese Laserdisc that was made in 1993 and watched. It's not all the episodes, but this one is on there, and this is the one where he's in the hospital, I believe.
Yeah, I don't remember because they were all done independent of us. I think Carl might have done a few of those, but
he did. Yeah, he's credited on a few. Yeah.
The only episodes I did were all with the older Indy and not with the young Indy.
Letter to T.E. Lawrence, begun December 3rd, 1916. My dear Ned, I have embarked on a great adventure. My fellows and I are to cross the interior to retrieve a consignment of weapons much needed by our war effort. It is a daunting trek of 2,000 miles. But in Africa, a single machine gun can be the deciding factor in a battle. The difference between victory and defeat.
We love the movie cut, though, especially of that one. I think it cuts together very well. And we actually talked to Ben Bird a little bit about the battle scene, because on the movie version, it's longer.
Yeah.
In the broadcast version, it's only about 3 minutes long, but in the DVD, it's 7 minutes long. It's just 4.
I know. That's typical Ben. He became a very good friend of mine. I was thrilled to meet him. I met him first in Kenya, and he said, well, they've asked me to direct second unit. I couldn't. And he had all these scenes from movies cut together, and I thought we could do this and do that. It was fantastic. A great guy. And we became very firm friends, and look, a very underrated talent, very underrated.
Can you talk a little bit about, you're called in to do this job? It's very short notice, as you said. What was some of that? Do you recall what some of that early prep work was like for the show? Like most television in America, directors are kind of hired guns. They come in, they do their thing, and then they head out. But from what we've heard about Young Indy, is you were really given a lot of authority, of creative autonomy over the show and of the look. How did that kind of affect the prep process for the show?
Well, the prep was relatively brief. It was quite well advanced when I came on board. So when I went to London, I met with the production designer Gavin Bouquet, who was back from Africa and Barcelona, working on future episodes, and we had a great number of really productive meetings. And I met with Lucy Bolting, the casting lady, and she had also had someone who was going to be out in Africa, in Kenya, to help me with the casting there. And of course had to get lots of needles. I had a very sore arm on the Monday night because I had to get, yellow fever and smallpox and all those sorts of things. The preparation, I literally arrived in Kenya, was met by Tony Hopkins, who was the first assistant director on that particular episode. And the next morning, we went on this scout, and he took me to this very remote location where we were at Albert Schweitzer's hospital, which was right up in northeastern Kenya near the Somalian border, on a place called the Tana River. I scouted, and they were building this hospital compound, which was terrific. That's exactly how I saw it, and I'd seen all the plans from Gavin, and that was very well advanced by the time I got there. And then, so Tony and I probably, we went to another place called Lamu, which again is right out, it's an island off northeastern Kenya, and there is no transport on the island. The transport on the island is donkeys. They're all just loose around this place, and if you want to get somewhere, you catch one, you jump on it, and you ride. It's incredibly exotic, you know. And the scouting was a real eye-opener. And then the other main thing, of course, apart from finalising locations, was we're going to do most of the jungle scenes close to Nairobi, and but the Schweitzer's hospital and the boat scenes on the Tana River were very remote, and to get to them was like a light aeroplane, and when we took the crew, and it was one of those slightly bigger airplanes that have a very short landing and takeoff, which is very exciting. I mean, we were really doing it, and basically we camped under canvas for about 6 weeks while we were shooting that episode, and were picked up every morning by boat, transported upriver, and then overland by truck to the set. It was fantastic. I mean, talk about, you know, John Huston making the African Queen. That's what it was. It was fantastic, you know. And I remember the day the crew arrived from Barcelona, because I basically sat down and met with. I hadn't met David Tattersall before, and all the special effects guys and the sound guys and stuff. So that was all, you know, very exciting. But it all happened pretty quickly. But it was there was a great energy and great excitement about the whole series.
This episode is in so many ways the heart of the series. It's kind of right in the middle, and the biggest character turn for Indy sort of happens in it, where he wrestles with the disillusionment of war.
Yeah,
and it sounds like you came in at the last minute, so it wasn't like it was, you know, the selection or you chose it, or there was probably even a lot of discussion about that ahead of time. So how did you even approach that when you sort of come into it and you've got this Frank Darabont script with these themes in it? Like, what was your take on the material?
Well, I loved it. You know, I thought, how lucky am I? I think this is it, because also it was always a 2-hour episode. And I thought, gee, how lucky am I to land this? Because I thought the themes were brilliant. And on the way from London to Nairobi, Lucy Bolting, the casting lady, said, look, we'll arrange for you for you to be able to stop in Frankfurt and meet with this actor we think will be perfect for Albert Schweitzer. And that was Frederick Van Turen. And we actually had coffee at Frankfurt Airport. I was en route to Nairobi, you know, and I just...
Wow.
From the time that I met him, he was just perfect, you know. It was a great bit of casting.
In the first place, my name isn't Fritz, it's Albert. And in the second place, you're not going anywhere, I won't allow it.
If you interfere, I'll be forced to shoot you.
Don't bother with me, just shoot yourself. You might as well. In your condition, you never survive your trip. Kindly blow yourself up away from my dock. I need it in one piece.
And a lovely man to boot, and a wonderful actor. And then, you know, because to me the key to those episodes, well, there's two. There's the black soldier who kidnaps, or not kidnaps, but takes the little boy, and he and Indy exchange their views.
Major Boucher only cares what's best for Major Boucher. Only cares for what's best for his people.
He cares about your people, too. That's why he's here. That's why we're all here. To get the Germans out of Africa so your people can have a future.
Captain Indy, you're a very good man. A kind man, but not a very smart man.
And then the other great part is where Schweitzer is going down river with Indy and talks about reverence of life.
Would it ever occur to you to enter a stranger's home and slaughter all who live there and seize the house as your own?
Of course not.
Why?
It would be wrong.
Your heart tells you this. But yet when governments decide to invade the stranger's home and commit murder, millions of men as moral and ethical as you, flock to the task, even at the cost of their own lives.
I just thought they're just so key, those things, and which brings me to the fact that the other main part in Nairobi was casting, and to cast such a big cast from a place like Nairobi is no easy challenge, but the casting people had unearthed some really good people, and we just lucked out. I mean, even with the little boy, he just turned out to be a little gem, but boy, oh boy, it was a big ask, As I've said to many people, the great thing about working with kids, if you can get one that's never done anything before, they're not self-aware.
I don't speak Ubangi.
He said, would you like to be his friend?
And there were some wonderful sort of local actors, none of them very experienced. I think probably spent 2 days just seeing, an array of people, and that also a lot of the English-speaking characters as well that we couldn't afford to, bring from London, and 1 and 2 lines here and there.
What was that? Belgian salute.
And then the language and the accents and all that sort of thing was a big problem, particularly with some of the French actors.
We leave him right here.
But sir, it's just a little boy.
And?
He can't care for himself. If we leave him here, he'll die.
He's dead already, Captain. I won't have him brought along in a sentimental gesture, just so he can spread sickness among the men.
Sir, I disagree.
You are being irrational, letting your emotion cloud your judgment. A good officer must learn that one bad decision can endanger his men and put his entire command at risk.
But anyway, we got there, and sort of away we went. But I really didn't have time to think about it, and because our first day's filming was, we and the crew journeyed by, I forget the name of the planes, but I think it's actually Australian made. It lands literally on a very short runway and can take off the same. And we went in by 2 of these planes, and here we are suddenly in the middle of nowhere on a crew that I hardly knew. And we then went by truck overland to where the set was, and then from there by river downstream to our camp. And I thought, wow, here we are, And day 1's filming was on this riverboat that I see behind you, but that's not the riverboat. That riverboat was number 2, because number 1, the last shot on day 1, is capsized.
Oh, no.
How about that? I planned this day so perfectly. We'd finished. We were doing the last shot where this boat is just drifting. All the crew have got come down with disease and stuff, and the boat's just drifting. And all of a sudden, over she went. And that's it. The Tana River, and there are crocodiles on the on the embankment. You've never seen extras. And David Tattersall and I were in a boat with a camera, and we dragged Sean and Remy onto the boat, but the extras, they broke the world's speed swimming record just to get to the shore, because that is a crocodile-infested river, and we'd seen them on the foreshore on the banks there. And anyway, we all got out of it unscathed, but suddenly I was 1 day behind schedule.
Oh,
what a bloody start! Anyway. That's what happened. So they had to find a boat which had a wider beam than the original one, which was a bit unstable, and and it was pity. So we threw everything we shot on the first day had to be thrown away.
Oh, heartbreaking.
And it was quite different, the second boat from the first boat, and so there was nothing we could salvage from the scenes that I'd shot, but. And, on a TV schedule, but what could you do? I mean, it's nobody's fault, just one of those things,
You mentioned the actors. There's an actor in the episode, and I pulled his name up, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, I'm sure. But it's Isaac de Bancole, who played Sergeant Bartlemy in that episode.
Yes, that's the guy, yeah. And that's the team I'm talking about. He was wonderful, yeah.
Mungo Kidogo. Little god.
scary soldiers, so you strike down that bad German bullet, Indy. So you die, then come back to life. You cuff a bullet, spit on ground with much contempt, lead us scurry to victory. Big magic.
No, Bartlemy, the men have it all wrong. It's not magic, I'm just lucky. The bullet struck my locket, see, it's...
This is a very small target, so your juju very powerful. Mungo Kidogo, little god, he who cannot die. 2 promotions in one day. First captain, no god. You amaze me.
I was curious if you were involved in his casting.
Yes. Oh, yeah, very much.
He's gone on to do so much, but at the time probably was relatively unknown. Had you seen him in anything before?
No, never. And he came in and, like everybody, probably read for us, and I can't exactly remember.
Well, you like to cast actors who would go on to appear in Casino Royale, apparently.
I will take a hand for this betrayal, but you need to play cards.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that, but yeah, he was a lovely, and he was very. I just remember that scene when he brings the little boy when they're all lining up ready to march out.
Sergeant, it's a dangerous game you're playing with me.
But, sir, this boy is not sick.
I thank you for your opinion. Give me that child.
He will come with us.
By God, I will be obeyed! My men aren't perishing in the jungle like dogs! It's treason, Sergeant! Treason! Captain, draw your sidearm and take him. If he refuses me again, shoot him!
But sir, he's my sergeant.
That is not your concern! I am your concern! Now draw your weapon!
In fact, that was the first day that George and Rick were on location. And that's the day that I met George Lucas.
Wow, on the set?
On the set. We were shooting that particular scene. So it was, I'm just trying to win. Well, that was pretty, I think that was pretty deep into the shoot, actually. I think George and Rick were busy, doing other prep and stuff like that. But anyway.
Well, they didn't want to risk the wilds of Africa they were asking you to endure.
No, from memory, those scenes were shot just outside Nairobi. Those particular scenes, but yeah, he was just lovely. And favorite scene of mine is that scene that I just mentioned, and also when Indy comes into the tent and realizing he's got the boy, and they talk about war, and he wants. Black man and black Africa, and it doesn't quite gel with India at the time. He's more about doing the right military thing rather than
Here is my people's future. Every child, if he grows strong, if he grows wise, someday he will make a future for my people. Not be a white man's soldier in white man's Africa, but a black man, an African man. In his Africa. You savvy me, Captain?
Isaac,
yeah.
He's terrific, yeah.
What did you say to him?
I said I'm his friend. And I also said I do not wish to leave him. But if I go away, he shouldn't be afraid. He must grow strong and wise. Make his people proud.
Sergeant, under no circumstances are you given leave to die. That's an order. One I expect you to obey for a change.
It's such a massive kind of episode. I mean, it's a two-parter essentially, and it really fits together so well. But you cover so much ground, just in terms of tone. You have the war, the battle sequences to start out with, then you have kind of this march across, this disease-laden Africa, and you have them like dying on a boat. And then you have this more softer contemplative storyline with Albert Schweitzer. Like, I wonder if you could talk about just navigating those tones in the period of time you had to shoot with. It's must have been quite an undertaking, especially with a new cast. This was very early in their shooting for the series.
Yeah, I suppose it was all a bit nerve-wracking the first few days, and particularly the next day after the boat rolled over. We had to start shooting on the hospital set because we didn't have a boat. So we had to abandon all those scenes. And then there was also a delay because by the time the dailies were processed and, they had to go back to London and then come back. So you didn't even hear about the dailies for 2 or 3 days. And I was very nervous and much relieved when I certainly got a note from Rick via George that he was very happy with the way the hospital scenes had been covered and the general tone. As far as both Sean and
Remy,
Sean and Remy, they were both pretty much spot on, and it wasn't me to interfere with. It was more to take them through blocking in the way I saw the scene, but they knew far about their characters more than I did, and so I was more like orchestrating, if you like, their performances and stuff. But of course, a much greater help. One of the biggest challenges was the French actors was accent, and it was really hard. We doing take after take just to get to understand what they said.
What you did today was hardly cause for promotion. It was stupid. He's dead already, Captain. I won't have him brought along in a sentimental gesture just so he can spread sickness among the men.
Their performances were great, but it was just, will the audience understand that, because the accent was so heavy. You're probably aware of that too, I'm sure.
Well, the DVD version, this is interesting. A lot of the actors have been revoiced by, it sounds like, different actors. When you compare the broadcast cut, the DVD cut, the voices have changed. Were you involved in that at all, or was there any discussion?
No.
Is it, you think it was probably because of that issue, like that maybe there was...
I think so, and it's nobody's fault. It's just, it was what it was. He really needed French actors to... Nothing worse than somebody playing a French character with a dreadful bloody, Hollywood French accent.
If that machine gun had jammed before you reached the barricades, the entire company might have been wiped out.
Major, you have the right to press charges if you wish, but be advised that I've received a communique from General Tombeur.
If that machine gun had unjammed before you reached the barricades, the entire company might have been wiped out.
Major, you have the right to press charges if you wish, but be advised that I have received a communique from General Tombeur.
Where have you been keeping him?
Back with the barrels. What will you do to me now, Captain?
Damn it, Sergeant, I can't believe you'd put me in this position.
You did not know I took the bar.
But I'm responsible. Where have you been keeping him?
Back with the bearers. What will you do to me now, Captain?
Damn it, Sergeant, I can't believe you'd put me in this position.
You did not know I took the boy.
But I'm responsible. And when Boucher has you shot, that will also be my responsibility.
And they were all very aware of the problem, but also the problem when someone's struggling just with accent, they slow down, and so all these things were quite challenging. But meanwhile, every day the clock's ticking, and you've got to get through coverage, and there's a lot of big logistical scenes where we're covering a lot of ground, but no, I think tonally I probably just did it more by instinct than anything, because it was there. It was all there on the page. It was just up to us to capture that.
So I think even the order you filmed, and you can tell me, the next episode you did was the two-part, the trenches and the prison break, which was
I did the Russian one next.
One of the priests at the seminary said he's heard that the Bolsheviks are going to stage a coup within the next 10 days.
Really? Know anything about that, Sergei?
Hey, comrade spy. Remember our deal?
That was called Petrograd, and that was a 1 hour. And then it's been joined to the one that Vic Armstrong did, and that's how it's become a 2 hour. So that was mainly shot in Prague, although we shot for 2.5 days in St. Petersburg, which was fantastic.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Rosie, you're trembling. I think I should take you back. I really think...
No, please, it's just a little chill.
Most breathtaking part of the world, and I just would have loved to have seen it in its glory days,
Yeah.
And then it was the Trenches of Hell, and then finally the Light Horse episode. Now, the story about the Light Horse episode, the very first day that I met George and Rick, I joined we're all on location for lunch, and they were going over a list, and it was March 1917, April 1917, and they had every one. They had a script for every single one, and there was one date they didn't have, and it was October 1917. And I said to George, have you seen my film, The Light Horseman? And he said, yeah, I love that. I love that film.
Welcome to Palestine, Captain Reichert.
Thank you, sir.
The High Command has sent you to congratulate me on my earlier victory in Gaza.
News of your triumph arrived after my departure, but I'm sure they would wish me to do so.
Of course. But all congratulations are due to the British general, Sir Archibald Murray, for he had captured the town. But he's such a dunderhead he didn't know.
The Light Horsemen are coming, and nothing can stop them.
And I said, October the 31st, 1917, the charge at Beersheba. He wrote in there, Beersheba, and he said, we'll get Frank Darabont to write it, and you can direct it.
Wow.
That's how that came about.
Amazing.
It was amazing,
We have attacked the Turks here at Gaza. Both attacks failed. I intend to be in Jerusalem by Christmas.
And how do you propose to achieve that, sir?
By turning the enemy's flank. By making what I believe to be in certain sporting circles is termed as an end run.
Well, I guess, all right, we started to talk about it. Let's talk about it. Okay, Beersheba. All right, so I watched your movie, The Light Horseman, last week as well, and it was the first time I'd seen it. I knew that, some of the story about the use of the footage, but it was sort of like, I was aghast at it's the same story, right?
Yeah.
Desert hawk. Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Migratory birds are a hobby of mine. And we don't know very much about the migration habits of the stork in Palestine. We see them fly north in the spring, but we don't see them fly south in the autumn. Now, my theory is that their southerly route is further to the east.
As a director, what was it about sort of telling the same story again that was exciting for you?
I guess looking at the charge from a different point of view, if you like. And all I could think of was we actually got my first AD from Australia, Bob Donaldson, who'd done The Light Horseman, because he just understood the physicalities of doing a movie like that. And I'm trying to recreate and put stuff. I knew we were going to be able to get access to the Light Horse footage, but I still had to capture the actors in Young Indy in, for example, The Charge. Redoing The Charge, the great irony of it was we were in Turkey, and I had Turkish riders playing Australian light horsemen, which was bizarre, And I wanted to do some tracking shots, and we found this sort of deserty sort of expanse. All we had for a tracking vehicle was an old ute, a utility, a pickup, but very underpowered. And Bob, my first AD, was driving. We were charging across, got up to full speed, and these horses had come thundering up and past us. And, go faster, Bob, go faster. It was unbelievable. But anyway, somehow we got there. But no, it was interesting because how can I do this different? I mean, you can't. There was not much you could do different about The Charge. It is what it is. But in terms of having other actors playing different roles and stuff, it was certainly an interesting experience. But again, a really good cast, and it wasn't easy. We had a lot of problems filming in Turkey because the Turkish were insisting that George Lucas was distorting, history and all sorts of silly stuff, and it all turned out to be there was a troublemaker in the production department who had a lot of power, a Turk, and he was creating these problems, and it became a bloody nightmare, actually.
Too late, spy. Your little charade is now truly exposed.
But anyway, eventually it was resolved. But the joy of that that particular episode was having two unknown actors, one called Daniel Craig and the other called Catherine Zeta-Jones, you know.
You said I'd be traveling with another agent.
Maya.
A woman?
Her guise will be that of a belly dancer. You are her escort.
This just got interesting.
And fantastic. And my wife, who was one of the art directors on that episode, she said, she kept pointing to Dan and saying, that guy's going to be a star. Look at his eyes. He's going to be a star.
It is merely a diversion to make us think they are here in force. You will cancel that call. Captain Schiller. Cancel the call!
And Catherine was great. She was wonderful, except she did our very first day's filming, which is her entrance. And when she rides in, or she's led in on a camel by Minor Target, and it was bloody cold and it was snowing and they're trying to scrape the snow out of shot and all that sort of stuff. And we're in the middle of nowhere and Catherine's going in this impeccable well take, Wincer, will you get me off this fucking camel? But no, she was great, a real pro and a delight to work with. And because originally we'd actually cast Minnie Driver in that role.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
And Minnie rang me and said, oh, Simon, look, I've been offered 3 months in a BBC's, I think it was, series, and, you know, I'm a poor actress and it's lots of work. Would you mind if I bailed? And I said, oh, look, I understand, of course. And so that's how we cast Catherine. And the interesting thing was that I was in Istanbul at this stage, and Lucy Bolding, the casting lady, said, look, there's an actress you might like to have a look at who we think will be perfect, and her name is Catherine Zeta-Jones. So, oh, yeah. And so she sent me a tape. Well, it's of an obscure film that Catherine had done, and, you know, she's almost stark naked in every scene in the movie. You know, I think probably... So when I met her, I said, Catherine...
What movie is this again?
I don't know. I think Michael Douglas probably bought every copy, you know.
My name is Scheherazade. Are you mad at me? Should I take off my clothes?
Of course.
So when I met Catherine, she arrived in Istanbul, you know, late one evening, and we were sitting in the bar waiting for her to arrive. And I said to her cheekily, Catherine, I don't recognise you with all your clothes on, you know, but she was a good sport and she laughed a lot, you know. So, look, I have no idea what that film was.
Scheherazade?
Come with me!
Where's that?
To live the life of an acrobat!
How did you find Daniel Craig? How did that process happen?
I guess through the casting department. I can't quite remember exactly how, but you know, he was a young, you know, good English actor, of which there are many, and he seemed to fit the bill because he had that kind of Germanic sort of look.
Toulouse! You people have captured nothing but a burnt-out shell in the desert, not a drop of water!
And the interesting thing was that particular script had a different ending, and where Mayer, in fact, goes to pull the plug that's going to blow up all the wells, and Indy shoots her, and then the movie finishes. When Ben and and Ben Burt cut that particular episode, when we showed that to George Lucas. George liked the episode, but he said he wasn't happy with the ending. He said, "Oh, we need something, you know, and we need a sock fest, an old-fashioned boom, 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 you know, like John Wayne and you know, Burt Lancaster, all that kind of stuff." And so we came up with this. Simon Crane, the stunt coordinator, came up with this great fight between, and we shot the lead up to that, and we shot this particular sequence one afternoon in Prague, you know, and with Daniel and Indy. They both did the whole thing themselves, no doubles, and it was just terrific. That's all it was, a good old-fashioned Hollywood sock fest, you know.
Were you in Prague when they shot that, or was that a different unit?
I directed it. Yeah, I flew over from the States for that because we were doing a few pickups for different episodes, and they did later on, but because it was only an hour episode, they expanded it to 2 hours, and there's a number of scenes, one of which I absolutely hate, which is Young Indy on a you know, corny sort of bridge thing and all that.
Okay, why don't we cross here?
It will never take the camels.
I think we should do it. I'm not gonna get caught in that sandstorm.
No Bedouin would do this.
Yeah, well, I'm not a Bedouin.
No! You're a fool! It's impossible to get those camels across this bridge.
It's not impossible.
You'll never get them across this bridge. What are you doing now?
Unloading the camels.
Which did nothing to do with me, but I...
Yeah.
Well, what can you tell us about... Yes, the expansion of that episode is really interesting. So you had an hour cut that was done, presumably, and then it was expanded later.
Yeah, and there were some scenes could be happily extended anyway, but there are a number of scenes. There's a scene where Indy and Lawrence go, I think, riding together, and they sit in a temple and talk. That was certainly added.
Just a few broken pillars. That's all that remains. Yet, when you think of the armies that marched past here, men who made history here,
The children of Israel.
Assyrians, Hittites,
The Romans, Crusaders.
And now us.
And if we don't?
Then we shall fade with the glories of Nineveh and Tyre, unheralded, unremembered, no more.
The scene on the bridge, which we've seen so many times before, and it's pretty hokey anyway.
It's not bad shooting.
Thanks. Now all you have to do is to catch our camels and get the rest of our stuff across.
And then also there's a scene where they're in an oasis and they're confronted by some Arab sort of baddies as well. That was added, and I didn't do that either.
Who are they?
I don't know.
Oh, can't you tell what tribe they're from?
They may not be from any tribe.
Well, what's that supposed to mean?
They may be outcasts.
Outcasts?
Do you trade with the English?
A bit with the English, yes. But also with the Turk.
The Turks?
But only when I'm forced to. No, the Turk bad is a pig.
You are worse than a pig. We take one camel.
One camel, Lord, I'm honored.
And the woman.
And the woman?
Now go!
Lord, no, she is lazy. She's the worst of her kind. She's good for nothing. Lord, she brings my life nothing but misery.
Then you'll be happy to be rid of her.
Yeah, so for the audience out there, like, just to catch everyone up here, like, the episode, as far as we can tell, it never actually aired. The show had been canceled, and there's some evidence that it might have aired in a few markets, but for the most part, this was one of the episodes that never aired. And then when it came to the DVD release later on, or rather, I'm sorry, the VHS releases later on, it became Daredevils of the Desert. This was a single episode that they filmed new footage for and turned it into, I believe it's 82 minutes is about the final runtime, but a feature length, no matter what. And our theories had basically been a lot of that kind of, before they get to Beersheba, but have already left the British encampment is kind of a lot of the added material there. One of the questions we did have regarding that, though, is this material was done later. I believe, Daniel, it was 96 was what we kind of honed in on.
We're speculating in 1996.
Yeah, probably.
And
I think we shot the episode in 92. I think it would early in 92. I think it was, but because I know I just finished post-production on Free Willy.
Where's Free Willy?
And because I remember scouting, and we was just about to start going back to do the final mix and music recording and stuff like that. So that was around about Christmas 91 or 92. So it was sort of around about that time. Might have been 93.
Yeah. So this reshot footage was done, and at that time, Catherine Zeta-Jones's career had kind of risen quite a bit. So like we speculate, we're not entirely sure, but we speculate that her character being in those robes through the journey is to hide the fact that it's a body double underneath there.
Certainly all the camel stuff that I did, and there was a lot of it, she did all that. I guess the one giveaway was that what I noticed in some of the pickup scenes is that her mask is slightly different. It's not quite across the nose. It's sort of hanging a bit and stuff like little things like that you might be aware of, but I was certainly aware of.
Do you know if Catherine came back for the reshoots or that they had to use a body double?
I can't answer that question. I have no idea.
Yeah, okay.
We had a conspiracy theory that because she appeared in your film The Phantom later, that perhaps it was a simple like little favor, like, hey, could you come in to do some
No.
What's
interesting is that when we screen tested 3 actresses for that role, did proper film screen tests at Paramount Studios, and one was Brooke Shields, one was became a famous singer, and still is. I'm married to Ben Affleck.
Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer Lopez. She certainly auditioned, and Catherine. And when we showed the scenes to Paramount, Robert Evans was one of the producers, or not that heavily involved. He didn't like Catherine at all, but Sherry Lansing, she thought she was star material and she was fantastic, and Sherry won the day.
Happy now? Get a good look.
And I was certainly very keen on Catherine, because we'd worked together before, and I knew she was good fun, so that's how that came about, basically. But we developed friendship on Young Indy, and certainly got to know her very well on The Phantom.
So then, for the reshoots for Daredevils, you basically weren't involved, no ADR or anything. The fight scene, yeah, because that was still when we were shooting the series, and that was just a rewritten ending, the sock fest. But as for the rest of the scenes, no. And you don't know who directed it. You don't know who did any of that.
I think it may have been directed by Crispin Maurice, who was a first AD on the series, and did a bit of directing, and he might have done a bit of it. He was pretty capable, Christian, and certainly a very good AD. It may have been Crispin, because I think I vaguely remember seeing a credit lurking about for him as additional directing, but I wouldn't be sure of that.
Well, we were going to look into that, because that's a great lead you got there.
But anyway, I wouldn't. If you know my work well enough, you'd be able to pick the scenes that aren't mine, I'm almost sure.
That's what the little angel had to do. There, that's Angela, Mum. Ugly, awkward, stupid Angela.
Well, I'm sure I did the right thing. I think there is some justice in life. I could almost laugh. And it's all been made possible by you, or should I say that? And remember, my angel, when things start to go sour, don't darken my doorway, ever.
Well, and you would probably know, it looks to me like they added some scenes with some of the horsemen. There's like a lunch scene where Indy has lunch with a couple of the horsemen. And I always say the giveaway is Sean's hair. Sean's hair gets longer in any reshot scene. And there's also some awkward cutting, and it's really well done, but you kind of figure out that in the original version, Indy probably got on his horse and left. And now there's this whole scene where he gets off the horse and they eating some rabbit and they're talking about Australia. So I just assume that was added, but I don't know, maybe if you remember if you ever shot that.
I think it might be a combination of, it might have been added to.
Got it.
Join us for lunch? Not this time. Been reassigned. Appreciate the offer, though. Fellas, take care of yourselves.
That's so interesting. It's one of the best re-edits I've ever seen of
Well, I must admit, what Ben did at the beginning, just as an intro, is fantastic, because he picked some great sequences from The Light Horse and rolled them all into that opening, which is really great.
Main batteries open fire. Fire!
Yeah, it's really is. It's all fun, and it looks so huge. I mean, the scale of the episode, being the only one in the Middle East, which feels like Indiana Jones, and Lawrence of Arabia, of course, being such an iconic film.
Oh yeah, it's probably one of my favorite films, if not my favorite film. I love it.
So you got to remake The Light Horseman. You got to put Lawrence of Arabia in your movie. You're just doing all this stuff.
Exactly.
Going back to the Russian episode you mentioned earlier, we love that episode, and we talked to Gavin Scott, the writer of that episode, on the podcast. And I think the ending in particular is something that we find very impactful. You mentioned making movies that make people cry. I mean, it's definitely on your on theme for you there. But do you have any memory of staging that sort of, I hate to use the term massacre, but that horrible scene where the revolutionaries are sort of gunned down in the square? Yeah. Do you have any recollections of filming that scene?
I do. My most is trying to police an area like that to keep people away, out of shot while you're doing a period piece, because everything changes so radically, and just the location was sort of great, and it worked really well. The square and the top sort of right corner where they come marching in, and all the guns up on the roof and stuff like that. I was surprised because the very last shot when I forget the character's name, played by Gary, the English actor. He walks out into the middle of the square, and the camera pulls way, way, way back, and it's this tiny figure. Originally, he screamed out, "Traitors!" And that surprisingly has been dropped, and I was surprised why, but it's still quite effective. And I guess that's the same massacre basically that David Lean did in Dr. Zhivago, which is at night time. It's all played on Omar Sharif's face and a shot of a rolling drum, which was incredibly powerful, because I was very aware of that when I was shooting this particular scene. But I love doing that episode, because I remember saying to Dave Tattersall, who was a lovely cameraman to work with, just wonderful, I want the Lennon scene to look like a rock concert, light, flares, everything. And he did a great job in that, because we had a limited number of extras, and we had to spend an hour or so just moving this block all the way around the hall so that we knew they could join it all together and, fill it up. But that sort of stuff, because you just wanted it to be epic and impactful. It was very hard to do with like 30 or 40 extras. And but by the time it's all cut together, there's, a few hundred there, and it's fantastic,
I was about to ask, and you just answered it, because I was going to ask how you wrangled those hundreds of extras for that scene, and it cuts together so seamlessly. I would never have thought it was only 30 extras that you just.
Probably there may have been a bit more than that, but the other difficult thing is always we're dealing with people who don't speak the same language as you, so you have to work through interpreters, and that takes a lot. And look, I've done my share of that over the years, and certainly the African one was like that, and certainly the Russian, this one in Prague, where so you give all your directions to an assistant director, who's a local, a Czech local, and then it gets passed on, and by the end of the day, you're doing everything by sign language, thumbs up and cheering them on. It's good fun, though.
So many of your films really, I say films, so many of your episodes of Young Indy really highlight just such memorable guest stars. I wondered if you had any memories for the Rush episode in particular of some of the actors there. I'm thinking of Julia Stemberger, who played Rosa. It's such a memorable performance. Also, the Sergei actor, I'm going to butcher his name, I'm sorry, but it's
Pavel.
Pavel, yeah. They're both just like so good in that. I wonder if you could talk about that.
Yeah. Again, just lucky with good casting people. I thought, for example, you mentioned Julia Stemberger. She was terrific. That scene where she tries to convince it, or she tells Indy that she's in love with him.
When I'm with you, I feel alive. And when you're gone, it's as if someone has just shut me in a tomb.
It's such a touch, so beautifully played and so touching. And Sean is great in that scene too. They're both terrific. And I shot it sort of very simply.
I sometimes envy Sergei and Irina. They've got it all planned out. As soon as the revolution is over, they're going to move out into the country.
Yeah, I know.
Sergei's going to build a log cabin by a stream and catch fish.
The words do all the work because they're beautifully written by Gavin and beautifully performed by those two actors. Pavel, I think his name was. I might have written it down somewhere. Where are we? Ravel it was. Ravel, Isanov, and Beata Rozanak. She played Irina.
Let me have a jump now.
No, it's not fun now. We have to save it.
Save it, but I'm hungry.
Sergei, come on.
And Ravel is a very, very talented Russian actor who at that stage had moved to London, and I think Beata was the same. Julia, she was from Austria, and who else do we have in that episode? The one thing that I remember saying to Dave Tadd also about that episode, we wanted it to look like the Third Man, heavy backlight and listening streets and all that. And that's the beauty of being in Prague, because that was not long after the fall of the Velvet Curtain, if you like, and it was only a year or so since the Russians had left, so everything was still pretty primitive compared to our parts of the world, and so a lot of locations were unblemished, which was great. And but yeah, look, hats off to the casting department, because you have to rely on them a lot, and they produce the goods, and you see them, and you think, oh yeah, that person fits, and that person fits, and so that's how it goes. And then basically sit down with them and make sure you're all on the same page. And my job is to, if you like, orchestrate and make sure that we're all thinking the same way and trying to achieve the same end.
You mentioned the fall of the Berlin Wall and kind of this opening of Eastern Europe and Russia. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that. Like Young Indy was really one of the first American productions to get over there, and you could talk about like working in that area of the world.
It was a great thing when we went to St. Petersburg to shoot there. First thing, Saturday morning, it's a bit bleak and it's cold and it's drizzly, and we're in the I guess it's called the Triumphal Arch, which goes into this huge square, and opposite is the beautiful palace, and looking around, pacing up and down, say, yeah, we'll put the crane here and we'll just crane up like that. And this Russian group says in English, yeah, that's where Fred Skepsy put the camera on the Russia House. And Fred happens to be a mate of mine because he's another Australian director. But anyway.
Oh, wow.
They were great. But the one thing about filming in St. Petersburg, we had a police escort everywhere we went, and we shot this montage of where Julia's taking Irina's taking Indy all around the Rosa is taking Indy all around the bridges of St. Petersburg to keep him away from the planned party, so we'd roar from one location to the next, and it was very well organised from that point of view. I had been there with my first AD, Christian, a month or so before, and we'd scouted there, and we left Prague to do this scout on a Sunday afternoon on a OK Airlines flight from Czechoslovakia, from Prague to St. Petersburg. We were the only two passengers on the plane.
Oh, wow.
And it's giant bloody jet. And then when we get to St. Petersburg Airport, the pilot explained to us that the reason we weren't going up to a loading bridge was because we were only two passengers. It was cheaper just to. This is right when the Iron Curtain was coming down, and so we get out of the plane. It's freezing cold and it's snowing, and these two giant sort of Amazonian women in greatcoats march out to us. They're in full military outfits. Mr. Wincer, Mr. Reese, we have a problem with you leaving Russia. We go, oh my God, and it turns out the problem was that there were going to be no more OK Airlines flights to Prague, that we'd have to go back to Prague through Moscow, but hearing that in English in those weird conditions with these giant soldiers. Anyway, we went into customs and we were met by the local film liaison guy, and all was good. And we had a great scout, and he showed us all the prime spots that were possibilities, and that was fun. It was a fun couple of days, actually. He was quite a character.
Wow.
And but then when we left St. Petersburg, we had to fly, on a domestic flight back to Moscow. And it was a bloody awful day. It was snowing, and so we got on the plane, and it takes off, and we're literally climbing straight up like this. And this hostess walks down the aisle, and she's selling, chocolates and sweets, and the plane's still like that. We're bouncing around. Oh my God, things were different there then, But I guess that was her way of making a bit of money on the side, because everyone was so poor. In fact, when we had a lunch break, when we were shooting, Rick McCallum went off and bought everybody for lunch pizzas, from a pizza place, and we came back and he gave a box to our 2 or 3 police motorcyclists that were escorting us, and they were so grateful. They couldn't believe how lucky they were to be eating pizza, because they're also poorly paid, and it was very eye-opening, but a great experience,
The people must bake the cake and the state must divide it up equally, so everyone gets a fair share according to what he needs. And that's what communism is all about.
And this is anarchism in practice.
Let's talk about the Somme and Germany, which is another 2-hour, two-parter that you did. We also saw the originals of that one, and in the bookends for that one, Indy goes to jail, and I think it's really funny.
What's going on here?
I was only trying to tell the lad a story.
He assaulted me, man. Take him in.
I did not.
I'm afraid that's what it looked like. So,
Bro, wait just one moment.
come on, man. Don't make me have to use the cuffs.
But your episode, it's, I guess, as filmed, the second sort of Trenches episode.
Yes.
That the series did, although in chronology now it's sort of the first one.
Yeah.
When you're going, this one, of course, you've been on the show, so maybe you had a little more time to prep. What was that prep like for this sort of very heavy, dirty, war movie?
The concept of the 2 episodes was that what George wanted, what we all wanted was, and Jonathan Hensley, we wanted All Quiet on the Western Front and The Great Escape. And that was of course the brief, if you like.
You asked me to tell them how much they're needed out there. He tells you, go out and die. Oh, but if you'll pardon me, it's easier to say go out and die than it is to do it. Coward! And it's easier to say it than to watch it happen. You're a liar!
Au revoir, monsieur. Au revoir. Good luck.
Thank you.
Having shot in Prague on the Russian episode, I certainly knew that we had a great variety of perfect locations for what we required. Barrendorf Studios, where we were based, had a great back lot, which was just totally empty. So we were able to create that whole battlefield, the trenches, the chateau up on the hill, and everything about that. And they managed to have a Russian former trench digging crew created all this myriad of trenches and stuff. And
oh, wow.
It was remarkable, remarkable. It was so real. As you would luck have it, I could backlight literally everything that I shot, which David and I, of course, love, and it's great for cinematographers because it gives you depth and definition and even though it was shot in the middle of winter, and in fact, the sun kind of drifted through the greyness on every single of the 5 or 6 days we were shooting on that lot, and really worked for us, in terms of the smoke and the gun flashes and all that sort of stuff. Because I think the Somme might have been, I think it was like the worst part of it was, I think, sort of July, August, September, something like that. But we had the opening shot. There's a train coming in and it's snowing, which looked great, but not that time of the year. But
it looked awesome, though. Yeah,
it looked awesome, and there's a great example again when they march off to the holding area. There's a great wide shot of all the troops lined up, and again, we just had 30 or 40 extras and platoons, a couple of platoons of French and Belgium, and just moved them around on a little grid that the art department had figured out for us. And there you get the wide shot, and it's great, and it was sort of the early days of doing stuff like that, but again, it was all planned and worked pretty well. So tonally, that's certainly what we wanted to capture. I mean, I wanted the battle scenes to be confronting, but not. We didn't want them to be bloodthirsty, because and I think just by seeing the brutality of it all, I think that's all you need. I don't think you need to see legs flying off, and has become the habit now, and that was very much the way we decided to do it. All worked pretty well, a lot of rehearsal away from the set with the stunt guys. I think they're a local football oval or something, and that's how they did also that battle scene at the beginning of Africa too, like that, with a lot of local stunt guys and stuff like that. And but again, it's all about the people you have around you, and they had the best people on Young Indy. It was great.
I mean, going back to your trademark of making people cry at the end, though, like the end of that first half of the first episode there, like literally everyone dies, like except for Indy and even Remy. You're like, oh God, is he dead now? Like, we don't know. And it's such a powerful ending. Like for the longest time, I thought it was an additional photography aspect added later to fuse episodes together for the DVD. And then when we recently watched it for the original broadcast cut, it's like, no, it's always been there. It's really interesting.
I'm sorry about Sergeant Giscard, Lieutenant.
He did his duty. The weather is fine today. Reminds me of home.
Sir, no matter what happens,
It reminds me of my wife.
Yeah, and then I love the ending of the next one, because that's real Indiana Jones, and that's what we were trying to achieve when he's being chased on a bicycle and he outruns the train and just crosses in front of the train. And that's all done for real. That's not fake. No CGI in that. It's just the stunt guys worked out the timing and of everything, and we did a couple of slow rehearsals and stuff, and the train guys were great. But yeah, that to me. Here we go, Indiana Jones,
Is that Sean on the bike in that shot for real?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That's fantastic.
I do love that the Great Escape episode, essentially, because it starts you're literally in the Great Escape prison camp, essentially. Like it looks so familiar, and there's so many of the references to the movie there. But then it pivots, and you go to the, I don't know what you'd call it, the castle prison, I guess. But yes, it's a marvelous episode. And then of course we meet Charles de Gaulle in that, and it plays into some really interesting bits of history as well. Yeah. I wonder if you could talk about that on a larger note, just like kind of balancing the history, and kind of the action and the story, because George was focused on really educating people as well as entertaining them. And I wonder how that affected you as the director.
Well, yeah, right from the start, I was very, very much made aware of the fact that I think George came up with the concept just knowing that his kids knew nothing about some of these great characters in history, and what a great way of entertaining them with a familiar character and introducing these characters from history who legitimately could have come across the path of Indiana Jones. And so conceptually, I think it was fantastic, a great idea, and I guess I was lucky enough to score some of the episodes that were able to be fleshed out a bit more, if you like, both Africa and the Trenches of Hell, because that was another 2-hour one that we I don't know, there was just time for all those themes to be fully developed, I think, and rather than sort of 45 minutes TV time slot. I suppose when you think about the characters that Indy meets in the series, there ain't too many we've missed out on in the 20th century. It's fantastic.
Well, you got some big ones, because you got Albert Schweitzer, you got Charles de Gaulle, you got Lawrence of Arabia, you got Lenin, Your episodes, you have a heavy hitter in each one. You know?
Yeah.
No Bronislav Malinowski for you. No.
Exactly.
Given like you directed 6 episodes in the original run of the show, so it's very, you did a lot, and there's I imagine your schedule was pretty packed. Like, were you able to get back to the ranch to work on post at all, or were you just purely done with one shoot onto the next?
Absolutely, no. Managed to go to the ranch, and what was great, I remember the very first time I went there, it was the day after Thanksgiving. It was the Friday, and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and she'd heard about the series, but it was very early days. Anyway, we went up and we stayed there, and the next morning, Saturday morning, I walk into the editing room and meet Louise Rebecki. My God, she'd cut Godfather 3. Hello,
Yeah.
How lucky am I?
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
And George turns up, and there's an assistant editor whose name escapes me. George turns up, and he's got donuts and coffee for everybody, and he says, well, Simon, you probably want to look at this episode on your own first. So he took Lizette, my girlfriend, and gave her a 2-hour tour of the ranch.
Oh, wow.
While I went through the episode that's the sort of guy he was, while I went through my African episode, and which I was thrilled with. But it was, obviously Louise's first cut. And then, so I just looked at it without stopping. Then we went back. And then George sat in, and again early the next week we did some more with George, and a very funny thing happened. Just before I'd driven up to Skywalker, I'd had a meeting with a lady called Beth Sullivan. She wanted me to direct a pilot called Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and so we met. And then from there, I was literally picked up Liz, and we were driving up to Skywalker Ranch. And I said to her, look, I'm really interested. I'd like to think about it. We'll talk early next week? And she said, yeah, fine. Cut to the editing room early next week, and I'm sitting there with Louise and George and myself, and we're going through the episode. And the phone rings. My phone rings, and I pick it up, and it was Beth Sullivan. She said, oh, do you have an answer? And I said, oh, Beth, look, I've been thinking about it, and I'm still thinking about it. And I suddenly see George realizing what the call is about, going like this, no. And I said, Beth, can I call you back? So I hang up, and George says, I forgot to tell you, we want you to direct this 2-hour episode of a war episode about, the trench warfare and all quiet in the Western Front and the Great Escape. And we want you to do it, And he said, that's why I was signaling you, please don't take the pilot.
Don't take another job. We need you.
And so I rang Beth back and said, look, I'm sorry, but I can't take it on, which would have made me a bloody fortune by now, because there were so many episodes that show made. However, I was very happy to do, and I loved doing that episode, which we now call Trenches of Hell. It was great fun to do, and when I saw the first cut, and Bert cut the first hour, I went up to Skywalker, and Ben said, we're going to look at it in the big theatre, So we went, and he's done a full Dolby mixer, things going over our heads and explode. It was fantastic, But that was Ben, It was fantastic. And I remember George, we showed it to him that afternoon. We made a few minor changes and stuff, and he was thrilled with it,
Should have told Beth, I'm sorry, but I'm sitting here with George Lucas, and he's offered me another job, so I will not be directing your pilot. I'm sorry, goodbye.
It was pretty chuffed to be, because I'd only done the one episode then, and the African one, and we spent quite a lot of time. And the other interesting thing that happened, I remember saying to George over one thing on the boat, oh, you can't do that. That's a terrible cut. And George says, it doesn't matter. It's better for the story, And he was very much totally script, character, and story orientated, as opposed to technically orientated, as everyone says he is. Well, he is, but that is not what comes first, you know, and that's what was fascinating about it's all about character and story, you know.
Yeah, that's great to hear. But yeah, I mean, do you have any other kind of memories of George, you know, as you're working on the series, notes or just encounters?
Lovely to work with. You never saw him get angry, and there was a lot at stake with a series as ambitious as that. One of the interesting things was that I think one of the reasons that I was suddenly chosen to director that I mentioned, whose name escapes me, I think he was doing Cairo, and George liked everything shot multicam, you know, at least 2, if not 3 cameras on everything. And that's the way I work anyway, and also he had also chosen to save the budget, shoot it all on 16 mil, which is a massive saving, you know. Obviously the quality is not as good, but acceptable on television, and he knew that the digital age was coming too. But so from that point of view, it was sort of great, you know, that somebody thought along the same lines, because there's nothing worse than shooting a scene, you know, single camera, bang, bang, bang. It's very tough on the actors, and it's just great if you can make it easier for them by shooting. And sometimes you have to compromise for sound, and sometimes you compromise the lighting and stuff like that. But the bonuses are that you get great performances, you know, because you're not doing endless takes of the same thing from different angles and stuff.
Well, that's really interesting. I think Cairo was directed by Jim O'Brien, so maybe that's the
Jim
director.
O'Brien, yeah, I think that's the guy that I think probably initially he may have been slotted to do the African one. I think I never really
would make sense, because I don't think he directed anything else in the series.
Oh, he didn't. No.
Obviously directed the first. That was part of the pilot. So you know.
I know from one of the crew had told me, one of the ADs, that he kept getting in trouble for not shooting, you know, doing scenes in one shot and not multicam and stuff. And the thing is, particularly with television, you need to have coverage, because if you've got a time problem, it gives you an option, you know. Whereas if something's shot in one shot, much as it may work, great, but if you don't have something up your sleeve that you can suddenly cut away to condense the scene or something like that, it makes it very challenging. And so, yeah, from that point of view, I guess George could tell by looking at my work that's obviously the way that I worked, you know.
Well, you know, your episodes are really strong, and I remember when I was a kid, when I just watched these for the first time, I don't know, I was 14 maybe, and I wasn't, you know, the IMDb, if it existed, I had never heard of it. So,
yeah.
You know, you know about people from their credits, right? You see their name on screen, and that's how you know. And so I knew Free Willy, and I knew some of your films, but I didn't know you directed those movies. So I knew Young Indiana Jones, and whenever I saw your name, I always said, oh, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Because it was always like, you had these great, you know, war and all these exciting ones for me, you know, as 14 years old.
I guess too, you know, Frank Darabont, you know, Gavin Scott, Jonathan Hensley, Frank Darabont, not a bad, you know.
Not at all.
Because they went through a whole you know, workshopping the storylines and everything up at Skywalker Ranch, and I'm sure Gavin probably told you about that. And I gather they had great time up there, you know, developing the stories and so forth, and lots of healthy, creative arguments and so forth.
Well, it was a great incubator for all those writers, who so many of them went on to do so many great things. And
yeah,
I think with the directors, it feels like he went for a lot of experienced directors, you know, people who had a body of work and brought that to the show, and it speaks to the show's quality and that it holds up as a film. I mean, you know, these are real war movies, or they're real dramas, and they still have such serious and wonderful things to say.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this podcast. We want people to know about that and to sort of put a record out there on the internet in the digital age for this great show.
Have you got a big following?
Big?
We're getting there. You know, we're
a couple hundred, a few hundred people with regular listeners. Yeah. And now that we've finished our first season, and I'm now getting hit up. I've got offers for connections to different people who are on the show off of Twitter, and all people were like, "Oh no, I'll talk to this person, So it's an exciting time.
You know, one question I wanted to ask, though, you know, I'm sure we're wrapping up here soon, but
it's all right, man.
It's interesting because in the States, the show unfortunately wasn't as successful as people were hoping for, the networks and so forth. We've heard, though, that in the UK, it was actually quite successful, and it ran in syndication over there for decades. I wonder if you have any memories of how it was received in Australia, and if it ran successfully, or if it was, if you have any memory of that.
Look, I have no memory because, as you mentioned very early on, I sort of went from film to film to film.
You did. You were very busy back then. It was.
I look at my wall with all these mini posters, and there's over 40. So, look, I can't say I remember. I think the few reviews that I've seen were very good. I wish, in a way, that it had been shown in the form it's in now, because I think it's a lot stronger now, as you probably agree, than it was the way it was presented before. But there you go.
Yeah, I think especially when we were watching the broadcast cut of the first episode from Trenches of Hell, it was so interesting that we realized that there's this whole big scene that establishes the two kind of pillar military characters, the French soldiers. I'm sorry, I'm blanking.
Lieutenant Moreau, I believe.
Moreau, yes. It establishes them so well in the movie cut, and that's not there in the broadcast cut. And
the Major wishes to discuss something of importance with you. I suggest you make yourself a little more presentable.
Think it's for stealing the captain's cheese?
No.
Stealing the Major's wine?
No.
Trying to steal the Colonel's daughter?
Maybe.
It's wonderful how the DVDs and the VHS cuts allowed for the full kind of, I would imagine a much fuller version of the show that you had probably hoped would be there to begin with, was able to be there because there was no limitations in terms of runtime or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah, because unfortunately, when you're shooting for TV, you're very aware of, the script lady says, "Oh, we're getting a bit long here, or that scene's a bit long," and you're thinking, there's nothing worse than having to ask an actor to play a scene faster,
Yeah, of course.
But though, some do indulge in like the sound of their own voice, and you do need to crank them up a bit. But it's nice to create a feeling on set where everyone feels comfortable with the way they're doing it, and encourage and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I love the experience. It was a very, very happy time for me, and enjoyed it immensely.
Well, I felt that the movie cuts, as you say, in the broadcast version, sometimes those bookends it felt like they made light of some of the material. That thinking that Indiana Jones is talking about the Great Escape because he's in a holding cell because he hit a guy in a donut shop, like, sort of robs the actual story of a little bit of its weight.
Probably a little bit hokey, I think,
Told you, boys, I'd be out in an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas watching it in the movie cut, where the first shot is that train coming in, that amazing long shot of the train coming in, like that just eases you right into it. By the time the train gets there, you understand the kind of movie you're watching, right? Yeah. And you go from there. So it's wonderful that they're out there, and that is the version that people will watch and remember. And we're happy that you like that version and embrace those as your films, really.
I can't remember the TV cuts, to be quite honest, because I had to do an interview there's a guy writing a book on my career at the moment who happens to be in Germany, of all places. But anyway, we covered Young Indy about 4 weeks ago, so they're reasonably fresh in my mind because I obviously looked at them all. And I was always very fond of the Trenches of Hell and the great, but the one that touched me the most was the Albert Schweitzer. Those scenes going down the river when he talks about the reverence of life. Whoa, boy, they're powerful. They're wonderful. Yeah.
I think especially today, and I mean, I guess it's timeless message, but I think especially today, it really has resonance. And I wish more people were doing shows like that and episodes like that right now. I think we used to have the Rod Serlings or the Star Trek: The Next Generation did this a lot, where it's like, war is not good. Let's think about this. But now today we've kind of moved away from that, and that's a shame. And I really value, especially the Albert Schweitzer episode that digs into that
which reminds me, can you just hold on 1 minute? I'll read you a letter from his daughter.
Please.
Oh, yeah, please. That would be wonderful.
I think it's over here. I'll just grab it. Now, this letter is from the Albert Schweitzer Institute for the Humanities, and it's from his daughter. His name is Renee, I think. Yeah, Rena Schweitzer Miller, and she lives in Georgia. April the 9th, 1992. Dear Mr. Lucas, I was deeply moved yesterday evening watching the episode of Indiana Jones meeting with my father, Albert Schweitzer, at his hospital in La Boraine in 1917. In this short episode, you captured the essence of my father, his dedication, his senses of purpose, and his ethics of the reverence for life, which became the basis of all his thoughts and action. You also charmingly depicted his sense of humor, which was such an important part of his personal, of his personality. And you showed how the influence of Indiana Jones' outlandish, sorry, it's hard to read her writing. You made him realize the immensity of and stupidity of war. In his life, my father has influenced the lives of many people, and he still continues to do so. His message today is perhaps more relevant than ever before. I'm deeply grateful to you for the sympathy for my father, what he stood for. You have manifested in this episode. This is a very powerful and gripping testimony. I think from the many things shown on TV, especially for young people, the Indiana Jones Chronicles are a remarkable educational contribution. I'm happy that they will be shown again this summer. Just now I am in Montana for a program to honor my father. During the second half of May, I shall be in Los Angeles, and I would very much like to meet you then if that should be possible in your busy life. With admiration and gratitude, sincerely, Rena Schweitzer Miller.
Wow.
How about that?
And that was addressed to George?
To George, yeah.
So he must have given that to you?
Yeah, he sent me a copy, yeah.
Wow.
That is very special. I mean, that's...
It's from the Albert Schweitzer Institute for the Humanities, and that's based in... and she is the executive vice president, and it's based in Connecticut, Wallingford, Connecticut.
Wow. I wonder, I would love to know if they ever met. You know, I could see him being like, yeah, I'll meet you.
I've no idea. I've no idea.
That's very special, though. I think, all of us in the film industry, like we hope we can make something that has that kind of an impact and really speak to people in that way. So it must have been very gratifying for you just to know that you've...
Well, absolutely. But I mean, for George particularly, because, the whole concept was his, and I mean, that's basically a result of what he achieved, and that's remarkable in itself, I think. I think it's amazing, yeah. I'm sorry that I was struggling with her writing a bit, but...
Oh, it's all right.
No, it's all right. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's...
It's very kind. That's very kind. Yeah, thank you.
Until I met you, I thought I was becoming a person I could respect. Now I'm not so sure. I feel sick in my soul.
That's a disease even I can't treat. I'm afraid it's up to you to heal yourself.
I don't know where to start.
You already have. So,
I think maybe a last question I have. You did 6 episodes of the original series run, and then it wrapped up. Was there talk of doing further episodes? Had the show gone on, or were you even in prep on another episode before the show got canceled? Do you have any memories of that?
I certainly wasn't in prep on another episode, and I don't. I think they were talking about the possibility of another episode, but I think obviously it didn't air well ratings-wise on, I think it was on ABC, and I think that was disappointing. it would have been interesting showing the episodes as they are now. I think they would have screened a lot better. But maybe it was just too educational. I don't know. But I mean, I found them very entertaining and beautifully put together. Beautifully photographed and edited, and post-production, music, everything. I mean, we didn't even talk about music, but boy, when I first heard, and I wasn't involved in the music. Once I delivered my cut, that was pretty much it, because I think the post-production at Skywalker is so fantastic anyway, when you've got people like Ben Burt and stuff. And when I first heard the music for Trenches of Hell and The Great Escape, that was fantastic. I just thought it was great, And, same with Lawrence Rosenthal's Joel McNeely for The Light Horse and Lawrence for the Russian episode. They're all wonderful. These are world-class composers,
Yeah, it's great music on all those episodes. I don't think I have any other questions. We got all our answers, which just thank you so much for joining us. And, this podcast never ceases to amaze me. There's always a surprise, and it's so wonderful to talk to you, Simon. And
oh, thank you. Look, it's been a pleasure, and look, I love talking about it because it's a big part of my life, and I'm very proud of my contribution to it, and certainly was great. I even had a call one day from Spielberg about another project that never happened, but he said to me, "You're one of the few directors I know that shoots battle scenes that I can understand."
Wow.
And the reason for that, he says I'm a big geography person, which I am. In other words, I like the audience to know where everyone is,
Yeah.
Whether it's just people talking around a table, it's so hard to get an audience lost by the way you shoot something. And the thing that I learned early in my career was the baddies go left to right, the goodies go right to left. That's simple. And the black hats always go, in the old movies, always go left to right, and the goodies always come right to left, the white hats, and in a way that's sort of the way, although because of the location in Young Indy in Africa, I had to have Young Indy's lot going left to right.
Yeah.
Oh my God, mate, it doesn't work the other way. We can't point the camera that way because there's all these things we don't want to see.
I was just, as you were saying that, I was like, but I think they were going the other way. I was like, that's great.
No, they were. But anyway. Stephen said to me, he thought the way I staged battle scenes were good. And the reason he'd singled me out to do another project, which never happened, was that he said, look, I need somebody that's got a real sense of geography. And so that was flattering. And then I got to work with him on Into the West anyway. So.
All right, I do have one question. So we talked to Gavin McKay.
Yeah.
And he told us a story. So I guess first, he claimed that you would take a morning run when you guys were out in Africa, camping in tents. And he shared a story where I guess they warned you there might be some wildlife, and that you went on this run and you heard some lions or something, and you came back perhaps a little shaken. Do you remember that at all?
I was a pretty serious runner. That was a way of keeping fit, and I always used to run, usually from location. It's great thinking time at the end of the day, particularly a tough day when you know. And there was another runner on Young Indy whose name was, he was the gaffer, Chuck somebody, and he was a runner like me. And what used to happen was we'd go by boat from where our camp was up, and then be picked up by truck, as I mentioned earlier, and go overland to the set. Well, Chuck and I used to run from where the truck picked us up, and it was about a half-hour run, including running through a very native village where, they're still living in grass huts, and the kids would come running after us. The biggest danger we were warned about was hippopotamus. On land, they're very dangerous, and they kill more people in Africa than anyone else. Not because they're vicious, but because they don't see very well and they're blind, and so it's all by smell and instinct. So they just charge, And I don't recall having, but we were warned about lions. But Chuck and I would always run together. In Nairobi, I went running on my own, of course. the thing is there, it's quite high altitude-wise, so it's good for you because you know, drawing. But Gavin, he's right. Yeah, I mean, I might have had it.
Well, he claims that he made an audio tape and that he actually played back sounds of lions near your route in order to scare you.
Oh yeah, he could. I'm sure they did that. There, that wouldn't put it past them. He was great. What a wonderful talent. Oh my God, you know. And it's funny, when my wife came to visit the set, she'd been on Wayne's World and something like that, and she'd finished, and so she came over to visit us in Prague, and she'd been there 24 hours, and they found out she was an art director and set designer and and they grabbed her, and she was suddenly, her holiday was ruined by she was put to work, you know. But she loved it. She thought Gavin in particular was great. You know, they were a great team, the art department, and as were all the crew. You know, it was a great compliment to. I mean, when you have producers like a second assistant director like Callum McDougall, who went on to produce a couple of pretty major films, Mission Impossible or something like that, one of those. Okay, and David Barron, you know, Harry Potter, and I mean, these are the guys that were in the trenches for us, and they were fantastic because the experience was wonderful, and that's what you rely on, you know, and they continually deliver because of their experience. And Rick McCallum was a terrific producer. He was a great leader.
We're hoping to get Rick on at some point and talk to him. But Simon, you've been so generous with your time here. Don't want to take up too much more of it, but hope we can get you back on sometime. This has been just a real wealth of information for us, and you have so many stories, I'm sure, that we haven't even talked about yet. But it's been wonderful to talk to you. What are you working on these days? Like, what's your life been like?
Basically nothing.
No, that sounds great. That sounds wonderful.
You got a book. You got a book coming out about your career.
Yeah. It's still we've still got a few films to go yet, but no, I've recently with a colleague put together a series of concerts of The Man from Snowy River, a film that I produced.
Yeah,
and we've done concert versions, toured Australia with symphony orchestra playing the score, and it had just gone through the roof. We sold out every concert, I think nearly 20 concerts, unbelievable. So we're now preparing another film I did called Fallout for next year. That's been great fun. I don't know if you've ever seen Snowy River, but
absolutely.
It's a wonderful movie, and the score has become iconic in Australia, and the reception almost overwhelming, brought me to tears, you know, because the first night at the Sydney Opera House, it was just mind-boggling. It was such an extraordinary reception, and it's great when you see a movie with a live symphony orchestra and you know, the film playing on a big screen above them. It's fantastic. And another great composer I've worked with sort of pioneered this process years ago, David Newman.
Sure.
And we first saw David, who's a very good friend, do West Side Story at the Sydney Opera House. It was fantastic, you know. Anyway,
that's great.
Wow. But I hope I haven't rambled too much.
No,
please.
Not at
This
all.
has been fantastic. Thank you so much again for joining us here. Listeners out there want to get in touch with us, you can find us at Young Indy Pod on Instagram, and hope you'll rate us 5 stars on all your podcast feeds. We really appreciate it. Helps us keep going here. So for Daniel and myself, thank you very much for joining us. Till next time, keep the adventure alive.
I'll always think of you about that floating arsenal, ripe with the promise of death. And yet we subverted that promise, didn't we? We used it to save a life, nicht wahr?
Das ist vielleicht das Beste.
A little subversion is good for the soul.
I'll be in the bar.
Next time on the Young Indy Chroniclers.
We're thrilled to have Mr. Lucas Seastrom, who currently works at Lucasfilm, although he is not here today as a representative. of Lucasfilm.
There's a lot of great nonfiction that comes out of Lucasfilm.
People who lived in the 20th century saw themselves as the climax of human history.
Found another great Kazantzakis quote: "Whenever a figure chanced to combine heroism with sanctity, then at last I possessed a model human being." And I read that and I went, that's Indiana Jones.